Hi, we are joining today through our sponsor, ProCare Health, with a topic that we think you're going to love. It's on relationships, pre and post bariatric surgery. So, we brought about this topic because there's huge changes that occur, those inner changes and outer changes that occur around the time of surgery. And what we're going to be looking at is those dynamic relationships. And what we mean by that is the people that you're around the most and the people that mean the most to you, those relationships with yourself, with your spouse, with your significant other, siblings, your parents, maybe your children or your work colleagues, and maybe even the bariatric program that you're associated with.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to talk about those relationships and how those um, react to the way that you're having surgery and getting ready to have surgery, all of those good things, and what your role is in those, and if you're under the influence of those relationships, or if maybe you're the influencer. Um, Hopefully, if you're the influencer, that you feel good about your changes and what's going on, and some basic techniques or helpful techniques to help create more intentionally and loving relationships with yourself and those around you.
Mm-hmm.
And introduce myself. My name is Brenda, and I am a bariatric surgery patient, but I'm also a nurse, and I worked as a coordinator for a bariatric surgery program for about 7 years. And now I work with ProCare Health. I've been with them, was part time with them for a couple years, and now I'm full time with them as a consultant. Doing these type of events, these virtual events that are just fun and engaging. And I have my cohort, Brittany, here with me. And Brittany, tell them a little bit about you.
Hi guys. So depending if this is going to be recorded or not, or if it's live, either way, you guys might be a little familiar with my face. I help run it with the lives a little bit and the support groups. Um, the support groups really have been a blast to do and get to know you guys and learn more about bariatric patients and the journey and just everything as a whole. It's been a great experience, and I've been with ProCare for a little over 6 months now, so I'm relatively new, but I love it so much, and working with Brenda has been great. And she's such a great resource if you guys ever need any questions answered, because as she said, she's a patient herself. So any issues or hardships or anything that you might be having, or even just questions that you're not sure about, she's a really good resource to reach out to. That's what she's here for. So, did you say that you're a life coach too?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I
Oh,
don't
okay. I
think I
didn't know
even
if you
mentioned
said
that.
that.
I don't think I mentioned it, but
She's a life coach too. She's a full package, guys. So really take advantage of it.
I love that part because I've always been really interested in self development and all of that. I have a coaching certificate in, well, it's not coaching. I have a coaching certificate, but I also have one in holistic stuff. It's through Healing Beyond Borders, so I bring
Hmm.
part of that into this too. And hopefully, with this, basically, what we're wanting to do and give to you guys is just resources for you to be able to bring awareness into your life and basically bring in more happiness, more connection with those pieces of who you are. Because when you're undergoing weight loss surgery, there's some huge changes that are happening throughout your life. And it's not just physical changes. You know, you go through a lot emotionally and mentally and physically, spiritually, everything. So it's that whole piece. And we're going to just kind of dive right in because we want to get into the meat of this topic and really start talking about how these things can help you. So we're going to go ahead and do that. And I am going to be sharing my screen as we do this because I have a little PowerPoint and we'll kind of be going back and forth. There's some resources that are available with this presentation, and those resources are located on our ProCare Health website. So www.procarenow.com, and they're under the About Us tab. The very first little tab underneath of that is support group or support group resources, and you can go there, and the name of this topic that you can access those is relationships pre and post bariatric surgery. So there's going to be 2 handouts under there that you can access, and we'll be talking about those and incorporating those into this. One of them is just basically a summary of all the different kind of relationships and what those look like pre and post bariatric surgery. And the second one is a couple little exercises, kind of like meditations that we're going to be going through this. But you can access those later to be able to try them on your own a little bit more in depth. So exciting stuff. And I'm going to go ahead and unless you have anything else to say, Brittany, before we get started.
I was just gonna say, if you guys have issues with the finding the resources tab, if we have time at the end of this video, I'm gonna try and share my screen and show you exactly what she's talking about and go there. So
Absolutely. And we also want to also mention too, we have a ProCare health channel on the Crowdcast website, which will show you how to access to as well.
yes.
When we get to the end of this video. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen, and you're going to see a PowerPoint. When you see that, Brittany, let me know.
It's up. I can see it.
Okay, perfect. So here, while that's me, and I am going to pull up some stuff here on my own. So we already kind of talked about this first one. We're going to be looking at the dynamic relationships with all different types of those people in your life. We're going to look about what your role is and also some helpful techniques. And when bringing up this subject, I think this is typically pretty key in a lot of people's minds when they're getting ready to have surgery, because a lot of times those feelings come up, especially with significant others. You know, sometimes it may bring up some of their own insecurities.
Yeah.
Yeah.
One
ahead,
of the
Brittany.
first programs that I actually participated in was I think it was a virtual one because of course COVID, you know. But there was a woman that spoke, and I will never forget this. She talked about how she really knew that surgery was the right path, but she was afraid to tell her husband. And she actually did not tell him. And she still got the surgery, and she hid it from him as long as she could, and eventually she told him, and she said that after she told him, it was just like a weight was lifted off of her, and she felt like she could finally I forget how she worded it, and she worded it way better than I ever could, but it was so, I don't know, inspiring. She just said as soon as she told him, and she knew that he had her back and that he was supporting her, she was like, it made the journey that much easier. Like it was like nothing's holding me back now. So I just wanted to share that because I thought that was incredible. So
I will say too, whenever I worked in the bariatric surgery program that I was working in, we did have several, Brittany, of similar situations where people were afraid or maybe didn't tell their spouse. And I think it absolutely is a personal choice, but
oh, absolutely. I
yeah.
agree. It's one of those things at the end of the day where you have to make that decision, you know?
So why is that? I mean, you know, like I said, sometimes it's insecurities of the relationship. Maybe you're afraid that it might make a difference to that person who you think cares about you. And here's some little statistics. So divorce rates can be as high as 75 to 80% in the first 2 years post-surgery. I feel like that's way high, but this was on one of the resources. And the more weight loss post-surgery, the higher the incidence. Not only relationship with the significant others can change, but also others as well. I know from my own personal relationship, starting out with having surgery, we had pretty supportive relationship, and my husband was, he didn't come to me to my appointments or anything like that. I think he just kind of trusted that whatever I chose was my decision. I've always been super, super independent. So I don't think he knew. I think he knew that no matter what I chose, I was going to do regardless of what his opinion is. I know that sounds kind of maybe bad, but I've always just been super independent and done kind of whatever I wanted to do. And he's always just kind of allowed me to do that, which I guess is a good thing, you know, in relationships, to kind of be able to do what you want to do in a relationship. But not every relationship is like that. So we're going to kind of talk about some of the ways to basically ease through that, I guess, and kind of bring awareness, because sometimes when you're aware of those dynamics, it helps you with understanding you're not alone and that you can move through that. And
I agree.
yeah.
Yeah.
So we're gonna go on to this next, why relationships change. And so personal relationships can be affected. Often patients' experience can change through this weight loss surgery with changes in appearance, in attitude, confidence levels, and behavioral patterns. And Brittany, is there anything you want to say about that?
I just like more so on what you were talking about before. I think that every relationship is different. Every couple is different. You know, what worked for you and your husband, you know, he knew that you were going to do whatever you wanted to do anyway. So,
Yeah.
but you know, another relationship may not be like that. And I think that that's okay as long as you're still doing what's best for you. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And really, and that's what we're going to be kind of diving into, exactly what you said. So, whenever it's right for you, somehow people will start to understand that at some point. And if they don't, that's their problem. It's
It
kind of like
is.
you got to do what's right for you.
Yeah. You know, actually, what's funny is that I have an agenda that has quotes on it. And one of the quotes for today, it says, "It doesn't matter what others are doing, it matters what you are doing."
Mm-hmm.
And that's very true.
It is. It is. And how you feel about it will start
Yeah.
influencing other people's outlook about it.
Mm-hmm.
You know, if you're scared and nervous about it and you have this resolution of fear around it, you're gonna experience that with your relationships with other people. But as you become more confident, you're gonna start experiencing more of that in those relationships. Does that make sense?
Yeah, you what you project is what you're gonna get.
Yes, 100%, 100%. We're kind of like radio antennas. So whatever we kind of put out there is what other people's going to pick up and feed on. It's energy. um, so relationships and dynamics. What relationships can be affected? Really, all of those, with ourselves and with others. And there's a little handout. Again, that you will have access to, and it's called Examples of Dynamic Relationships Pre and Post Bariatric Surgery. And again, you can find that on the ProCare Health website, www.procarenow.com. But we're going to talk about those right here. I'm not going to bring up the handout because we're just going to basically be doing a talk about. So I'm going to actually stop sharing my screen right now, and kind of just come back to being full size with Brittany here. Okay. Let's talk about self first, because really and truly, to me, that is first and foremost. Um, I believe the far most important relationship change that you have before and after surgery is the one that you have with yourself. And the older patterns of being neglectful or berating the self are being asked to be changed to ones of being kind of more empowered, being more authentic, being more kind to yourself, more caring to yourself, more loving to yourself, and that internal message of that inner critic, wanting more compassion, more understanding, becoming aware of how we treat ourselves, the food that we eat. All of these things that you're taking in may not just be food. Food that we take, if you're feeling that it's nutritious, but also those thoughts that we're feeding ourselves, the inner self, basically. And developing newer ways of viewing ourselves can lead to higher levels of peace and satisfaction in our life and overall happiness. So these things that we're doing here, the support groups, being around counselors, being around friends, family, can support those changes that you're making.
Mm-hmm.
So whether you continue following Brittany and I, on this, or get whatever you can out of this program or whatever programs we're offering, but maybe your own surgery bariatric program, maybe offering those. Bless you.
Thank you. I had to mute
yeah.
myself.
Or there's tons of things out there on Facebook, on all this other social media of ways to support you. You having those things out there is just really a good way of being able to kind of move forward and feeling more confident. So no one else or even anything else can ever make you happy or sad. And that's a choice that you hold within yourself. So developing and growing and evolving is paramount. So this relationship with ourselves is the first thing I wanted to talk about. And we're just going to go through a list of different relationships. The next one we're going to talk about is the significant other or spouse. So depending on what kind of relationships you have, here it's talking about that person that you kind of have a love connection with, is what we're saying here. And this person is the person with the most stake at change, for the change that you're experiencing. So they care about you, but they also are losing some version of you, the old version of you. And it's almost like developing a new relationship in some ways. So their perception and their perception of who you are may be changing, and a whole new you may be developing. So the older version is transforming not only you physically, but mentally, emotionally, and spiritually. So some fear that change will affect their own power and control that they have over the relationship, maybe that they think they have over you. And they may sense a change in the way you interact or take back your own power. And they may consider the changes as a certain type of rejection, maybe, or even if you haven't taken them for granted and treated them with kindness and affection, they may sense a change in that type of relationship. Like if you're giving them a lot of attention and then all at once that attention changes from them to you, they may sense a change in that, and that may be upsetting because it's not your job to make anybody else happy. It's not your job to give them attention. It's really your job to be the best version of yourself that you can be. And if a relationship is based on that, like based on that you having to provide something for them, that may be changing. In that sense, that connection there may be changing.
I actually just came up or just thought of a question that someone might have the same question if they haven't had surgery yet, so they're pre-bariatric surgery. Um, would you say that most programs have some kind of part to it where they help you find ways to talk to your loved ones about telling them that you're having surgery? I feel like that would be a big part of the program, right?
I do know that 100% of programs across the nation, the U.S. at least, and most insurance companies do either require or strongly recommend the psychological evaluation prior to surgery. And I do know the program that I was involved with did take into consideration your support systems. We had a few patients that were actually denied surgery initially, maybe you might say, just because their support system that they felt like
That they needed.
they needed additional support before surgery. It wasn't necessarily that they couldn't ever have surgery. It's just that there needed to be some more things in place before they had surgery.
Well,
Not
it's
that
all
you,
about time too. Maybe it just wasn't the right time.
yes. So if you may be a person that doesn't require a lot of support. Let me give you an example. For myself, I mean, like I said, I'm super independent, and whenever I make up my mind, I kind of make it up. Having my support was actually, I mean, Jeff did support me, but it wasn't like I kind of needed that. I just, I mean, it does help to have that with your relationship, especially because you're fixing meals for them. You're going out to eat. You're with each other when you're eating a lot. But for
Well, in a
me,
way, I feel like it's not even just your lifestyle that's changing. It's theirs too,
oh,
right?
100%, because the way you're fixing foods, like we had, what I noticed a lot in relationships is if you had a woman that was having surgery and her husband was coming with her to these appointments, he
Hmm.
was concerned about, the foods that she was going to be making, if she was going to be cooking.
Hmm.
I know that sounds kind of silly, but some men are really focused on that, or
Yeah.
maybe children. Like if you're used to fixing these huge meals and the like a mom would, a lot of times she would be like, well, I'm not sure what to do now. Initially, so with weight loss surgery, a lot of times I'd say the first month, your diet is going to be significantly different maybe than what most people are going to be eating, because you kind of go from clear liquids after surgery to soft foods
Mm-hmm.
to um, full, well, from full liquids to more soft, just soft foods to a regular diet. And that progression there is not necessarily what a lot of other people may be eating in your family or your husband or your wife, whatever that might be. But over time, then your diet is going to be, could be quite significantly like your family's, or you could be fixing healthier foods, healthier meals that they could eat too. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
But not everybody's interested in eating the same things that you might be interested in. So
Mm-hmm.
it is something to discuss. So when we're talking about spouses and how they react, um, it leads back to me to about the relationship with you have yourself. If you are secure with who you are and adjust accordingly, let's say it's with your diet, let's say, just say going out to eat or anything. If you aren't upset about what other people are doing, like you feel confident in what you're doing, then it's going to make it easier. Like you can't expect, like, for example, you can't expect everybody in your family to change the way they're eating just because you are.
Mm-hmm.
I know some people would come into these. We would have pre-educational classes, and they would say, "I told them that they can't eat that kind of food around me." You know, if you're trying to control what everybody else does, like control that they're eating pizza or control that they're eating, um, I don't know, whatever it may be that you can't have in the pre-op diet or the right after post-op, your surgery.
Mm-hmm.
If you're trying to control that, then it makes it really difficult for those relationships, because really they're not having surgery. It's your choice.
Yeah, it strains their relationship too.
Yeah, yeah. So, I mean, when it comes down to it, strong relationships can grow under stress, but weak relationships may likely grow apart or fail. So, you have to kind of think about that. Like, what is your relationship going into surgery? And be advised that the people that you need there, or that you want in your life, you need to continuously reevaluate that. Those people that are um, going to be there for you, or maybe that they can't be there for you because they can't, that's just not their personality. Being open and honest with yourself and with your loved ones can be kind of a catalyst for change as it occurs. And then including them during the process can be helpful, but also counseling pre and post-op may be helpful for those people that may be struggling going into this or struggling after.
Well, and even if you're not struggling, counseling might be a really good way just to make sure that you're on the same page with your partner too.
Mm-hmm.
You might not necessarily have any arguments, or at least that you don't think of, but it might be a good way to just make sure you're both on the same page about it and what your expectations are.
Mm-hmm. So some hospitals allow you to go in with those, like allow a spouse to go in with those pre assessments, whenever you're getting
Yeah.
ready to surgery. Some people like to do them on their own, so it's kind of up to you. But
Hmm.
aside that, even additional counseling could be helpful if you're interested in that. And then the next thing we're going to talk about, and Brittany, I want you to kind of keep me on track with time. I know
You're
we
doing
kind of
great
started.
so far. We're not even at a half an hour yet.
Okay, good deal. So parents, we're going to try to keep this under an hour, everybody.
Yes.
So parents are the next step, and depending on the age. So we do have some people that are under age 18 having weight loss surgery. We have some that are over. We have some that are midlife. We have some that are seniors. So it depends on where you're at. But if you're maybe at a younger age, or if you still have your parents as a big influence in your life, um, for a mother, okay, so for my mother, say for example, your mom, when I was doing research on this, mothers for some reason may be harder to convince because her baby is going through to be this has always been the center of her world. And so no matter what your age may be, your mom may make it known what her decision, she may feel it's very important. And she may very strongly try to encourage or influence, or maybe if she doesn't feel it's the right thing, she may be very verbal on that, depending on your mom. Everybody's moms are different. But no, what I'd say, it may be difficult for her to make a non-emotional assessment of risk versus benefits, even with current overwhelming evidence that the quality of life may supersede that. And sometimes what I've even seen is if the mother is overweight and she sees the daughter going through this, there may be some additional, jealousy. Sometimes, jealousy, or maybe just afraid, like a fear of what that dynamic relationship might be.
Yeah. Like how it's changed. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, how it's changing and that type of thing. I think the second thing is just kind of like we were just talking about that. So it may be a reflection somehow on her. Her moms might even think that maybe they perceive they created the problem. I'm laughing because I have a sister and her daughter. We were watching videos of when the kids were young. Me and my sister were watching videos of whenever our kids were young. Our daughters are the same age. They're 21 right now. And my niece, she's like, "Mom, look at this. You took me to McDonald's every single day, and look at me in these pictures." She was teasing her about this because, a lot of times when we're growing up, we have different figures than when we have whenever we get to be a more mature level. But just kind of funny. So, in Brittany, you talked about the jealousy thing. There might be forms of jealousy that come up. The big thing is to remember not to give up on your parents, because they can be your rock afterwards, and they aren't necessarily, even if they aren't necessarily accepting in the very beginning stages. And we're also going to talk about dads. Do you have anything to say about moms before we move on, Brittany?
Just, she's your mom. She's going to worry about you. She's going to worry about you for her whole entire life. That's what my mom told me. That's my job, is to worry about you no matter how old you are. So, she might not be on board with it, but you have to remind yourself it's not because they want you to fail or succeed. It's because they care about you and they love you and they want what's best for you at the end of the day. And it's okay if you guys may not agree on that, but I would just say family is family. So you're stuck with them.
regardless. And I think with fathers, when I was researching this, sometimes what I think they express is fear, maybe with kind of withdrawing or and that can sometimes look like disapproval. Sometimes they're the slowest to share, but can also be the biggest vocal supporter once they see how things do. And
yes.
I guess it's just about fostering the positives that they're able to give, and then kind of let go of the negatives. I know whenever I was, like I said, when I was working in the role of a bariatric coordinator, we actually had lots and lots of families that actually went through weight loss surgery together. The biggest family,
I think. Awesome.
Yes. So mother,
I love that.
Husband. Sometimes we have mother, husband, daughter, mother, husband, son. We had mother-daughter. We had grandmother and granddaughter. We had a family of 5. They were brothers and sisters that all had weight loss surgery. Mm-hmm. So it's kind of fun because that can even be,
well, I feel like that way they have their own little support group, and they can push each other to keep going.
And it absolutely is. I can say for myself, like, I had weight loss surgery 1 year after I started the working at this surgical program that did the weight loss surgeries. I was actually a year in of working in that program before I decided to make that decision. And my work colleague, she decided to have weight loss surgery too as well. Her surgery was maybe 6 months before mine, and it was incredible. We were going through the same thing at the same time, and it was so fun because...
That's so cool.
Yeah. Like the little things you don't even think about, when you're used to being able to go out to eat together, we would go down to the cafeteria together. We would take walks after we ate. because a lot of times after you eat, sometimes you're like super full and you just think, oh, I just gotta walk, so we to go take a walk, or just talking about things. It's good relationship support wise.
Well, and I feel like it's a lifetime experience and you get to share that with somebody who knows exactly what you're going through. So that's it just makes it that much impactful
Mm-hmm. It allows you to share things that you wouldn't necessarily share with,
with someone
maybe
else who's
with
not
somebody else.
experiencing it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And next, we're going to talk about children and siblings. And so many different family systems are around today. And it's probably hardest to predict how, maybe if you have children or if you have siblings, how they will react. For me, one of the biggest shifts was how I perceived myself within my family group. And I always considered myself to be kind of the biggest of my siblings as far as size wise before weight loss surgery. Um, I felt like I found myself feeling like I more easily was able to fit in. I don't think they judged me, but I feel like I had always kind of judged myself. My siblings were super supportive. I'm the oldest of there's four in my family, and they were probably some of my biggest support of systems. But I will say it did make me feel really different whenever I finally was able to get down to some of the sizes that my sister was wearing, um, or my mom. I mean, that was huge for me because I always considered myself to be so much bigger. So that was kind of fun. And then being able to wear a lot of the same clothes as like my daughter, or those family members was just fun, because when you're used to shopping in extra large shops or whatever, it's fun to be able to share some of those things. And the other thing I want to say with kids or grandkids in the home is the grocery shopping and the pantry, because that's always one of the biggest things that come up. I mentioned it earlier. Brittany's saying, yeah. So I say it's maybe, or maybe if you're going out to eat a lot before COVID, I can say that was probably a big part of my lifestyle, and my husband's lifestyle. We loved going out to eat with family, with friends. We loved kind of being able to, well, I was cooking a lot too, because both my kids were living at home whenever I had my weight loss surgery. Now they're both out on their own because they're grown, but um, it changed a lot of my cooking habits. And I kind of had to still be fair to them, like seeing what they wanted to eat and maybe feeding them and giving them the things that they still liked, but I
Hmm.
still had to be I was still purchasing stuff on my own. So you don't want to deprive yourself of things that you want to be healthier, but you also may not want to deprive them of things that they still like, even though you can't
Hmm.
have them. So it's kind of fair on both sides, but you can influence them into healthier eating behaviors. Do you have anything to say about this, Brittany?
Just, I feel like this might be the trickiest, and it's not really based on support. It's the trickiest because, they say like the first tip if you have a food that maybe you shouldn't be eating. Like I know you've been really open about your weakness is potato chips. So if maybe you have a problem with a specific food, usually the first thing that anyone tells you to do is, okay, well, just don't buy that food. Don't have it in your house, and then you won't be tempted. Well, with kids, it's kind of tricky because they tend to like those kinds of things. Like I have a 3-year-old sister and she's obsessed with fruit snacks and Oreo cookies and stuff that's all delicious, but stuff that I don't really necessarily want in my house. But if she comes and stays with me, I like to have it. So I know how tricky that can be. But you just have to find a way, I guess, to have some serious self-control, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or what would
Mm-hmm.
you say for someone who maybe has that issue?
I mean, for example, for chips, for me,
Mm-hmm.
um, I find if I buy like the little smaller portioned out bags, it's much easier, because you have to be conscious about opening up a bag. Like if you're
Right.
eating some,
Yeah.
um, like if you buy, and I like to buy a lot of the snack, like fruits and like nuts, for example. I like buying the
Mm-hmm.
little pre-portioned nut bags because sometimes it's hard to know how much you're actually eating when you get a big thing of nuts because you can. They're actually nuts are good for you, but if you're eating like a huge portion of them, to me they almost kind of make me feel sick if I eat too many, and they're probably not
Yeah.
don't need that many calories. So like the pre-portioned serving sizes are sometimes really helpful. That's one thing that I would say on that piece. Um, and also just maybe putting it someplace where you're not looking at it all that much. They've done some studies on things like fruit, for example. If you have a fruit basket and you have it sitting on your kitchen, you're more likely to eat it than if your fruit's in your refrigerator. So like those things that are in front of your face, maybe you may be more likely to eat. So if you have like snack cakes and stuff sitting out as opposed to in your
Mm-hmm.
pantry, um, it may be kind of it's still there, but you're not like thinking about it as much.
Yeah. I think that's a really good point. We're right
So
at 35 minutes, by the way. I just
okay,
want to let you know.
okay, good deal. We're gonna kind of move through the next. I got a couple more of these, so we're gonna move through those fairly quickly. We won't be stopping in between so that we can get to the other pieces. The next thing we're going to talk about is work friends. And work relationships can vary. So there are many different types. So many times coworkers join together to have surgery, like I talked about before, me and my colleague, or lose weight together. Other times you may find that relationships may feel threatened or become jealous when you start losing weight. And I've kind of seen this as working in the hospital environment, the hospital that I was working in, the first, I'd say 2 or 3 years, a huge percentage of our patients were actually employees. So I got to see this kind of play out in a lot of different work relationships. And what you can kind of see is sometimes people feel like they're being watched very carefully. Maybe if you're eating together, people, you may feel kind of judged or whatever, but really you're judging yourself more than probably what other people are. You just have to monitor how you feel and you respond to those relationships.
Mm-hmm.
You may find that sometimes people just admire and greatly respect you for what you're doing. The small changes may affecting your overall quality of life, and that kind of portrays that and it helps others to feel better about making those changes too. You wouldn't think that it influences the people around you as much as it does, but it very well can. If you have somebody that's making really huge lifestyle changes and doing those things to be healthier, it makes you want to do them. Have you ever been around anybody like that, Brittany, that's really influenced your behaviors and made you change in some way?
Oh, yes, yes, yes. My first job I ever had was at a car dealership, and it was in the main office, and there was four women that worked in that office, and it's a tiny office. It's not very big, so
Mm-hmm.
we all got to know each other really well, really quick. And anytime like one of us was trying to lose weight or just be more active, or we all had each other's backs. In fact, there was one time where we all signed up for Weight Watchers, and we kind of they started our own little support group. Like we would text each other on the weekends and be like, I did so well this week that I have all these points left over, so I'm gonna treat myself. Or I went out and took a walk today. Or like we kind of like held each other accountable, is what I'm trying to say. So
Mm-hmm.
it was a really cool. I loved working there just because of them alone, really. But
It
I
just
get what
makes
you
you want
mean.
to do, it encourages you. And when you see other people losing weight too, it's like, oh,
Yeah.
wow, they can do it. I can do it. I can do it. I can do it.
Exactly. And it's
Yeah.
almost easier to have. I don't want to say easier, but to me it's mentally easier maybe to have more
Mm-hmm.
people that are doing it with you too.
Yeah. I, I was finding, and I talk about my daughter a lot just because we have a really close relationship, but I was finding when she was home, I was purchasing a lot of the things because she's been trying the last 6 months to just really try to eat really healthy and
Mhm.
lose weight. She's down to her ideal body weight now, and she's really excited about that. I think she's lost another 10 pounds,
Well,
which
good
she
for
didn't
her.
have. Yeah, I'm really excited for her.
That's
She's done
awesome.
really good. And so she's sending me pictures all the time about the food she's eating, the workout she's doing, and I don't know, it just kind of encourages me to try to want to do those things too and know that it's possible. And um, how good she said she feels, as far as her body image and that type of thing, feeling better about that. So I mean, all of those things kind of matter, and they do influence you. They make you want to. You can do it when somebody else has done it. You can do it.
Right.
So I'm going to kind of keep moving on. Old friends. So old friends may fall away and new ones develop as relationships we have with ourselves change. And um, I can say they can either be your biggest cheerleaders or maybe not. They may not stick around if they're used to being your pizza buddy or your alcohol buddy. I don't know
I
those
was gonna
people.
say drinking buddy.
Drinking buddy, yeah. And not that that's a bad thing. I mean, I still have lots of friends, and when we go out, my first year after weight loss surgery, I didn't drink at
Mm-hmm.
all, but I still
Yeah.
went out with my friends, and I would just drink water or drink whatever. But those friends stayed true to me. They were just good friends. But, there are relationships where sometimes people don't always accept those changes and they want to be around people who are more like them. So,
Well, and unfortunately, I can speak from this experience too. Someone who you think is a friend, it takes something like this, like a big life change to realize who your real friends are. And
mm-hmm.
it's unfortunate, but it's kind of just a part of life. And I think that, true friends are a dime a dozen. You don't come across them very easily, I guess is what I'm trying to say. I didn't use that phrase right, but
I know
you know
exactly
what I'm
what you
trying to
mean.
say. And it's really important that you realize that it's not you, it's them.
Mm-hmm.
So,
And that brings in new friends.
yeah,
Um,
absolutely.
so it seems appropriate to introduce the issues with people who casually, basically, who you meet and you think, you know what, I can have new relationships. I can be around new people. And sometimes when your confidence level improves, you feel like being a little bit more social. So I just have few little questions that I'm just going to kind of say, and you guys can kind of think about them. It's something to just kind of ask yourself. So, what are your intentions, basically, maybe for bringing up a subject about your relationship? Um, will I'm looking here at my notes. So basically, will you inspire others? Will you maybe be an inspiration to help others to say it's okay? It's kind of decreasing that stigma around weight loss surgery. How do you want to guide your relationships? Do you want to be influenced by others? Do you want to be the influencer, I guess, of other people? Um, I guess that's when you're going into it, just kind of thinking about those things. And then the very last one here, I thought that was the last one, but this is actually the last of those, is your program team and surgeon, meaning the bariatric surgery program that you're going into and the people surrounding that. So through through your surgery and the recovery, your relationships may change a little bit. And what I
Mm-hmm.
mean by that is, sometimes people, after having surgery, they may have had a really positive experience, meaning they felt really supported by their team and they felt really good. Or maybe they could be that maybe you felt like you yourself didn't do the best that you did, and you kind of had this little judgment hanging back there, and you're afraid to go back to your team and afraid to get more help. Um, just kind of be aware of what that relationship is. And I think truly, coming from a program standpoint, I can tell you that they do likely want to see you back. They do, regardless of how you've done, the amount of weight loss that you've had or not had. They're there to support you and try to help give you resources. So if you're
Mm-hmm.
needing resources, that's a great place to start. And if you're not associated, like let's say you had your surgery over in Mexico or someplace in another state and then you moved, there's lots of programs out there that will go ahead and follow up with people that have never had surgery at their facility but are just needing follow-up. So I want to encourage that as well. Anything to say about that, Brittany?
I couldn't agree more. And kind of stemming back on the meeting new friends thing too,
Mm-hmm.
I would say take advantage of support groups as much as possible. I mean, not even ours. I think that ours is great. Don't get me wrong.
Mm-hmm.
But just and I know it can be tough to meeting new people and sharing your ideas and your thoughts and everything. But that's what they're for, and I think that that's a really good resource to meet new friends. And chances are these people are going through the same things that you're going through and feeling the same way you are. So I mean, what a great outlet to share and get to know people more and make some new friendships.
Mm-hmm. And um, as far as friendships go, I think those people that you want in your life, that's what you need to think about. The people that
Yes.
you want to include in those support groups that you want. So being really intentional about that. And we're going to I know we're probably kind of getting closer to time. I definitely want to share some of these little meditations. So I'm going to kind of share my screen once more, and we're going to kind of go over another couple